Hey friend, welcome to the Halfway to Dead podcast. I'm your host, Jen Lovell. Listen, you and I have reached that age where we are done with the bullshit. We know that midlife is our chance to flip the script and experience life on our own terms. It's time to reconnect with our higher selves and reclaim our inner peace. Are you ready with an open heart and an open mind? Awesome, you're in the right place. Hop in and ride shotgun with me on this midlife spiritual journey. Hey guys, welcome back. So today I have a repeat guest. I'm so excited she agreed to come back. Barbara Burgess is back. And just as a reminder, Barbara is an author, mother, executive, and unapologetic dark chocolate lover who's embraced the beautiful messiness of life. She founded Corluma, a Chicago-based consulting firm, wrote and performed a one-woman show, The Extraordinary Experience of Being Ordinary, and most recently wrote her first book, Enough, Finding Peace in a World of Distractions, Hustle, and Expectations. So listen, we went into this one without a huge plan, you guys. Barbara and I just felt this pull. We needed to come back together and talk a little bit more woo-woo, a little more spiritual, because during the first interview, she was dropping little things about these spiritual pilgrimages and how she utilizes spiritual practices from all different religions that she's learned about. And I had to hear more. And you guys wanted to hear it too, am I right? We didn't have a structured plan at all for this one. We talked about really great stuff. I won't even blah, blah, blah with you. Let's just jump in and talk all about the woo-woo with Barbara. Okay, you guys, Barbara's back. I told you guys we need to hear more about Barbara's story. And so she was nice enough to agree to come back and take time out of her schedule. I think what we want to dive into, Barbara, is your journey, your spiritual journey. We're going to get a little more woo-woo this time with it.
Yes, I'm excited for woo-woo.
So we can start wherever you want to in the journey, but let's go back to what foundational beliefs you were raised with.
Yeah. And I think that is where it starts, right? So I was raised Catholic, and, I say that like that means different things to different people at different eras and different time frames. So I was raised in the era still of kind of old school nuns. I had nuns who would whack people with rulers. I had nuns who would humiliate you in front of class. I had nuns who, who probably needed some mental help. And that was not something we talked about in the church.
No. And I wasn't raised Catholic, but I was sent to a Catholic daycare as a child run by the nuns.
Yeah.
And those women had something going on because they were not nice women. And to this day, I can't eat carrots because of the nuns. Anyway, I won't get into I got force-fed cooked carrots.
Oh, I could tell you some stories, but here's the interesting thing, right? Like that was an experience. So, I didn't even realize till later that, because I have friends who are deeply Catholic and had a totally different, beautiful upbringing and schooling in that, but that wasn't the segment at that age and time. I grew up in the city in Cleveland, and it was just that window and kind of what was allowed and not allowed, where I also had, we joke, but it kind of friend of the family, we call her the beer drinking nun, who didn't wear the old habit, who was just friendly, who was just such a
real cool nuns out there.
Yeah, really cool, right? But that again, so I was just talking to somebody about this yesterday, but they were talking about how much this, kind of applies into your life and your core limiting beliefs, because there is still this overshadow of good, bad, right, wrong, black and white, right? Mm-hmm. Because that is it. I remember this religion book I had, and it was literally like, these are the sins that if you commit, you're burning in hell. And so as a child, thinking that in the background, you don't develop a diversity of perspective. You develop like, what do I need to do to not get in trouble?
Exactly. Yes.
And so I had that going on, but then I also remember being in the age in probably age 7 where you get your first communion, right? And so there was just this very religiously imbued thing at school. And I remember just writing a note to Mary, Jesus, mother of Jesus kind of thing. And I just love, like, as I look backward, the little kid inquiring me, all right, why won't you appear to me now? Because you appeared to people in the Bible and there's just this thing where I was, Jesus, Mary, show up. Why did you just do it for those folks? So like I say that to say, although there was this framework that I think was limiting in some ways, but there was this part of me that was always a seeker in that way. That didn't deter from me wanting to have the magic of what I think is possible in spirituality and things like that. And so it started that way. But then, by the time I got to college, I just completely rebelled which was more reactionary than anything else. It wasn't like a thoughtful rebellion. It was that's all ridiculous. Therefore, and so I began to go down more of just a total exploration of metaphysics and things like that. So that was more into definitely more energy and all of those aspects. And I had in college some eye-opening experiences. Although I was raised in this Catholic schooling system, my freshman year, we were thrown in a temporary housing lounge. There were 8 of us as women. And so it was like Noah's Ark. It was like 2 of everything. And, out of every 2, there was one that came from a poor neighborhood, one from an affluent neighborhood. But I hadn't realized how limited my perspective had been. So I remember talking to a girlfriend who was Jewish who told me they didn't believe in hell. And I couldn't even imagine it. I was like, oh, there's a world in which you could choose that belief. Are you kidding me?
Okay. Yeah.
And then I had a French TA who, one of the whole classes, she talked about reincarnation. So we're just these mic drop moments that sort of, kind of blew up.
You were raised to feel we're taboo.
Yes, very taboo. You don't, I didn't even know that you could think them in that regard. And at the same time, to be with people who just thought it very matter-of-factly was really eye-opening for me. And I think that just enhanced that journey of inquiry and seeking and mystery. And I wonder. And so I laugh probably starting from that point onward, the bookshelf started getting filled.
Yes.
with
all kinds of books. Yep.
All the things. It could be anything from Sonia Choquette, who actually used to live on my street here in Chicago, and her teaching her class on intuition, to Julie Cameron teaching The Artist's Way, to Carolyn Meest, some of these early people in those regards. And so this is, to me, the interest in world religions and faith and spirituality and energy and what does this mean and why are we here has been around for, I'm going to say decades, 3, 4.
Yeah. So this started early for you. As soon as you got out of childhood and on your own, you started on these. So were you more drawn to one specific teaching as you started exploring them all?
Yeah, I think the first piece that was a rebellion against Catholicism was really just anything metaphysical and energy. Right. Mm-hmm. So it was almost like no faiths, because it was almost a dismissal of anything that felt like a doctrine.
Almost nothing. So you were just going to build from the ground up again.
Build from the ground up. And I think there was a part of me, again, we learn this as we develop and become wiser, I guess, over time, is I also was looking for an escape from what felt like normal growing up pain, normal self-inquiry pain, normal, unresolved stuff from my background kind of thing. So what was nice about the metaphysics at that point is it felt like an escape, and again, it was more in a simplistic mindset. Well, if I just say this mantra or do this thing, then I could float beyond bliss, all the kinds of things, right? Mm-hmm. And so it was interesting as I had that whole chapter, and then it wasn't until I went to work for an organization who did some spiritual pilgrimages that it was like another land of shifting. And I almost set aside the metaphysical and got a little bit more grounded. But at the same time, I was doing these annual trips to sacred sites all over the world and paused on the metaphysics, which I come back to later. But had the opportunity to study faiths from a visitation perspective, from going to sacred sites, but not as a tourist, right? As a, hey, let's meet people and let's have good dialogue and conversations.
These pilgrimages as part of your job.
Yes and no. I worked at the company that offered them, but originally it wasn't necessarily my job to do them. Over time, I got more involved in the planning and facilitating and things like that.
Trying to go do it with this company.
Yeah. It was it was an opportunity that was there. And for me, it was just a crossroads of 2 loves, which is world travel and faiths, right? Mm-hmm. And again, I think even at the core of it, I was a French major, and I people would ask me all the time, so are you going to teach it? Or are you going to do this? And I had a business minor, and I'd say, no, I'm going to go into international business. I didn't know what I was going to do. I just wanted to answer the question. But what I knew was I'm not really interested in grammar or teaching. What I loved about learning a language was that it could bring you intimacy with people that were not like you. And I think there's a crossover, right? It's like, even if I can't be fluent, if I could sit at a bar or sit at a coffee shop and meet you, a little bit more
meaningful conversation because I know your language. Yeah.
Yes. So then you might not just dismiss me as a tourist, and maybe I could learn something about life or the world through your lens. And I think that's what the spiritual pilgrimages did for me. I think it's really easy for us, myself included, to other people. You don't look like me, you don't act like me, you don't vote for me, therefore you're that. And it's so easy to put people in buckets. But I
Yeah.
think when you approach something like a faith or religion or a perspective from their viewpoint, then it breaks that down, right? So I'll just, a couple examples. So when we went to Morocco, it was the first time I really learned about Islam and the, Muslim faith. Just the idea that there was a practice of stopping 5 times a day to do your prayers. I thought that is amazing. That is amazing that in our very commercial consumption kind of world that you would pause. I don't care what you're pausing for, but that you had a discipline of pausing to say, hey, I'm going to reorient at this moment to what really matters. Right. And
Yeah,
so,
that sounds like a great practice for all of us.
yes. And so again, it didn't have to be that, oh yeah, I'm going to become Muslim. I'm not, that's not my faith. That's not what I was raised with, but that deep respect for what that meant. Those are the things that strike me, or even some of the rituals in that faith and what they're meaning. It's bringing, in the Islamic faith, you're bringing meaning to what you are doing in a powerful, potent way. Right. And so understanding that. And then, from other perspectives, I remember when we went to India and we got to be in Amritsar, which is home of the Sikh religion. And again, I had never had exposure to anyone who was Sikh. So to me, someone in a turban is someone in a turban. But when you've met folks who were raised in the Sikh faith, you understand that all the symbolism of the turban. The Sikh faith is one who would defend any religion. What they defend is the right to worship in any way,
Oh, I love
right?
that. Yeah.
And so just to understand, again, from that perspective, again, if I didn't know there's somebody in a turban and then there's a sword symbol and then there's a this and that, like it'd be easy to think of that as strange or bizarre or whatever, depending on your perspective. But to realize here's this faith that exists to honor everyone's right to worship in whatever way they feel safe and sacred. How could I not be behind that, right?
Right.
And so now if I'm, passing someone who has a turban and I look to see, is it, tied, is this someone practicing Sikhism or not, And so again, not that
how they have their turban tied and different things like that.
Yeah. And again, I know people who have done deep years of study in those faiths. Like that hasn't been my experience. It's been these more introductory kinds of perspectives, but it opened me up to different ways. And even looking at the faith I was raised in, I remember at one time we were in Thailand in, some kind of sort of spiritual worship space. And there were all these statues, right? And it was so easy to be like, this is so weird. They're decorating these statues with all these saints and all that kind of stuff. And it's so odd. And then, I all of a sudden look at my own faith, like if you're not Catholic and you walk into a Catholic church.
From other countries, other people, other faiths, they look at Christianity even as a whole and it's like, what in the world? Yeah, It makes no sense to them. So we have to realize they're thinking that too. How many pilgrimages have you been on?
Oh my gosh, it was 2000 until, we had a pause at the pandemic. So, I don't know, 19, 20.
Oh my gosh.
Somewhere, a lot.
But this is a whole book right there. Okay. No. My journey through the faith. I don't know. I'm coming up with a title now in my head.
There you go. Yeah.
So would you say, are there specific ones that really impacted you spiritually more, like that stand out for you? Like any specific trips or faiths?
Yeah, I think I can't think of one, but there are so many, right? And this is what I think is beautiful. Again, if we take ourselves out of our own shoes and put ourselves in the shoes of other human beings and bring an open mindset to discover, there are so many things that are possible out of that. So again, even for me, so we went to Spain, Portugal, Morocco. We went to Italy and Medjugorje. And so in Italy and Medjugorje, Catholic faith is what's strong.
Yeah.
And that allowed me to almost be with the faith I was raised at from a different perspective, right?
Mm-hmm.
We went to Medjugorje as a sacred site for where Mary has appeared to people, et cetera. But it allowed me as a more mature adult to not just rebel, but to say at its core and essence is beautiful about this faith, right? And again, there's different perspectives. Same thing with all the different branches of Christianity. But I have a strong belief system that at the core, there are these principles that transcend. If you really get to the essence, whether it's the Upanishads or the Vedas or the original Old Testament and the Torah and the Jewish faith, but in those core principles, it really exists to love people, treat them as you'd like them to treat yourself. There's just this core methodology of what it is, right? But to this point, there are certain things like I remember studying for one of our India trips, Ramakrishna was one of their saints, and really the lesson out of that was the interconnectedness of everyone. So the idea that I might be looking at you, but you're a reflection of me, that there really is this whole connected net. Well, what a good way to remember impact when I'm engaging with somebody, what's happening in my life. When we were in Israel, that we were in Sfat, and really that was, a lot of times the faith will have the dogmatic perspective of it, but they also always have this mystical aspect of it. So mystical really means direct connection with God. And again, I was raised in a Catholic faith where you had a priest that was an intermediary, right?
Yeah.
But
It's such a good
mysticism,
thing I find with Catholicism, you have to go through someone else to connect.
right. But
Yeah.
there is different versions of the mystical faiths where that's not the part of it. And so in Sufism for the Muslim faith, or for when we were in Sfat in Israel, like the Kabbalah and some of those studies, right? I remember when we were there in Israel, they talked about the tree of life. And again, disclaimer and caveat, I'm not studied in any deeply of these faiths. It's just kind of my experiences. Yeah.
These are your lived experiences.
But talking about things like, the tree of life, and the more that I can, allow myself to serve and give, the more that I'm open up to receive. And I think of that as a principle in my life. Like I wish to give, and therefore more can be given and receiving in me to contribute. So to hold, kind of the sanctity of that. And again, in a lot of these trips, sometimes it wasn't maybe what that person said, but what I took away from it. When we were in Israel, there was Rabbi Richmond, who was just a lovely human. And he talked about in that the faith and the way that he experienced is that every thought's an angel or a demon. Now, again, I did a lot of reprogramming not to worry about the devil as a Catholic, but to think about, now we'll go back into the metaphysics, right? Every thought becomes a creation of some sort. So to really think about, okay, who am I in this existence, and what is it I'm putting out? So am I sitting here perseverating or wishing hate on someone, or am I self-reflective and wishing well to individuals, even if I choose not to be around them?
Exactly. Yeah. Because it's all about the energy we put out. Right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And then I think to that point, like there was a whole, so there's all these countries, and we can continue to share about those, but then there's a connectedness back now for me to that early metaphysical place, because I think when I first became exposed to energy and things like that, and it could be anything from hand reading to auras to the pendulums to all those kinds of things.
Yeah, all the stuff.
I think in the early time for me, I just hadn't quite matured enough to understand that it's not an escape. It's just a practical thing, right? So it's a tool, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
And we talked about this last time, and you had mentioned this with the solo episode. So if I'm thinking about those energetic, metaphysical kinds of things, like how is that any different than bodily emotional intelligence at some level?
Yeah.
Right. So if I'm allowing myself and training my body to take more inputs than I'm cognitively aware of, so not just limiting it to my thinking, this is what, again, research continues to show us. So if the truth is I'm receiving loads of input, if quantum mechanics is really true, that the dot is appearing in multiple places of possibility until I focus on it, then this bridge between metaphysics, science, and real practicality, this is not a big gap. It's just different ways in.
Exactly. So you've had experience with all kinds of religions. Are there things that stand out to you? Like you started to talk about how essentially we're all heading the same direction. There's so many common things amongst the different religions. And I think we focus too much on the differences.
Yes.
And that's where we all get hung up in the small differences, when really the core is kind of all the same, right? Is that what you found through all this?
Yeah, and it's funny you say that, because I just saw a video yesterday with the Dalai Lama speaking, and he was talking about how we really have to focus on our universality as humans rather than my country, your country, my thing, your thing. And I think that was part of what also was behind the Enough book for me too, is it's not about what divides, it's about what we can share, where we can come together, what's in common. And so to that point, there's what's kind of universal under these things. And then there's my ever evolving spiritual faith, which
Right.
I reserve the right to constantly be in the mystery, to be open to new perspectives. I used to think about reincarnation, once I realized that was a possibility. And oh, by the way, not realizing reincarnation was part of many sects of early Christianity, that got wiped out of some books.
That's the thing. So, yeah, there's been, us humans like to edit things, right?
Yes. Well, and
edit and keep the power in some cases.
And understanding we are humans, right? We are very real. Like I'm not perfect. I'm not elevated. I'm not any of those things. I'm just a human having this experience.
Yes. Through time, you guys, everybody's been messing it up.
And we can't help but have our own bias. You just It's not, am I biased about something? It's how am I, right? And so to that point, for me, originally it was like, there's no such thing as reincarnation because I'd never heard the model. Then I thought there is. And I remember, again, going back to some of the early books, Many Lives, Many Masters. There were a lot of these books again in my youth. But there was a point at which from listening to things or hearing that I thought, gosh, it doesn't make sense to me that these are linear, that these lives are linear, which introduced a whole new perspective of time existing at the same time in multiple realities, right? And so that's
a tricky one to wrap your brain around, that one.
It is. And what I love is how our movie culture is showing it, right? You've seen the Marvel movies.
Yeah, it can help us understand just through these darn movies because essentially how do you explain it to someone?
I don't know that I explain it well, but the way I think about it, because again, I'm kind of a simplistic person. I just translate things down into practical because I'm practical.
I love that. That's what we need. Don't make it complicated.
Exactly. But I think about the fact that Einstein proved that time is not a linear thing. And so I have enough of a faith in the science piece of it there, right? But the way I think about it is that, and again, I'm going to go pure energy right now. So you and I have an experience in this particular reality. And we think like I'm sitting in a room and there's a computer in front of me and it's hard. And you're sitting in a room and there's a computer and we each have a microphone and we're having a conversation. We're in different physical places. That's our experience. But we know, not a newsflash from quantum mechanics, that actually there's nothing solid about that computer in front of me. That if its deepest levels, it is all energy vibrating. It is so condensed in my human experience and the way that this body is, that's how I think about it. I think about the multiple realities in the sense that in the same physical space, even there are multiple realities vibrating. It's just kind of what we're attuned to that we're locked into. So I chose to come here to have whatever, I think of it as like a video game adventure. Like I signed up for this one and I wanted to have some.
This is my plan.
Yeah, this is my plan. I wanted to come learn some things. My soul wanted to experience things. And so I tuned my radio into this frequency where you and I are having this shared experience, right? But I believe and think that if I were to tune my radio to a different frequency, that I would see and feel and experience very different things that are right here, right? So do I believe that there's spiritual beings and entities and whatever right here in front of my face and us in this conversation? I do. I just don't think my radar tuned into it, right? And I think what's so beautiful about mysticism or allowing ourselves to go on a pilgrimage or have an experience is we get to sometimes have a bridge between those spaces, Yeah.
And that it's really that energy when you're saying tapping in could have to do with multiple timelines. And also just once we figure out that frequency, when we want to start communicating with our spirit guides.
Yes.
Or our angels or past ancestors, ascended masters, anything. We have to raise our vibration to meet theirs. I'm betting they got to come down a little to meet us too.
And I just, because those are my beliefs currently, I do talk to them. I advise with them. I just use kind of more mechanical methodology, right? So I will journal and I might start journaling for myself and my own reflections, but then I'll just ask, angels and guides, anything to say about this. And I'll just let myself write.
Yeah,
now, again, at the end of days when we all transition, will that be quote unquote true or not? I don't know. But what I know is that it helps me lead a beautiful life.
It's where you're at now.
Yeah, I get to be in that mystery.
Yeah, we don't have to do the same things. So what would you say to someone on that theory, though, that's like, okay, so I'm hearing you say that I picked this shitty life and I want out. I'm not enjoying this timeline.
Yeah.
So what would you say to the person who's saying, well, how do I change my timeline then? What have you learned?
Well, I will say, so for me, this is a dicey territory, right? Because I also think it can be dangerous in the sense of some of those like, well, I attracted this, therefore, right? Like I think it's a
Yeah.
fine line in the sense that ultimately we don't know. And I think particularly, I've had friends struggle with cancer. I've had a friend that, two friends that have passed from cancer. And so can I say they attracted that in like that doesn't feel right to me, right?
Feel right either.
But, in the perspective, do I think all of that, like, and again, I'm blessed to have such a beautiful network of humans I've gotten to interact with. But because these folks were kind of more in that spiritual exploration, did they use those experiences beautifully for their own enlightenment, conversation, deeper things, saying what matters? They absolutely did. So all I can ever speak to in my perspective is my own experience. And so I can give you very concrete things that aren't logical that have happened in my life. This weekend I went to a friend's 50th birthday party in Denver, and she's into energy and things like that. But like the people around her didn't necessarily know that. And so she took the opportunity to bring a group of us together. And, they had a woman who does energy work, did a beautiful thing and pulled some cards. And again, I was sitting there and the woman was about to pull a card that was for the group. And I knew I said, oh, that's Sekhmet. I know she's going to pull Sekhmet. No, Sekhmet is this, Egyptian part cat. Got it. Like, why did I think of that at that moment? But what did she pull? Of course, that was a card she pulled. She had a deck this big. It had all world faiths in it. How do you know that's about to happen, right? So I choose to continue to open myself up and believe in those things because I continue to have experiences that are not logical, not explainable, that serve me, right?
Yes.
So to your point about the timelines, I don't know the exact answer. I just know the things I do. So you had mentioned tuning into that different piece. So this has been proven even through research, but being in that space of gratitude is effective. Yes. We know that it increases our vibration. They've hooked people up to monitors and measured things when I'm going to bed or waking up to try to put my heart in that space. I don't know that it's really about thinking about the thing. I think it's more how my heart feels when it's grateful and what the energy is that's created out of that is really beautiful. Like one of the organizations I follow is the Heart Math Institute. They're doing just such beautiful work on the vibratory power of our heart and resonance, including with plants and trees. And again, the measurement, they show that our heart vibration is out way past where our body is. So we know that we have all these energetic fields connecting. I think we're kind of simplistic if we think, well, that doesn't mean anything. How can it not?
Of course. There's so much going on.
Yeah.
And so I read an article recently about the whole, measuring vibrations. And did you see the strongest vibrations coming out of people was when they were authentic? Talking and acting with what was authentic to them, put off the highest vibration of any other emotion, not love, not anything else. And they were monitoring, people were talking about things that felt authentic. That's literally the highest vibe we can be at. It's our authentic self.
And by the way, I think that is so powerful and so true. I did see that clip the other day, but I think like that word authenticity. So again, I do executive coaching and consulting has been thrown around so much, right? So what does that mean? And I'm at a place where, mid 50s and I'm just giving myself permission to even be authentic at the next level. So again, to come out, you and I had this conversation. We were talking about my book last time, and all of a sudden we end up down this beautiful wormhole of our spiritual beliefs. So to me, to be able to come on here, this is authentic. I don't know what I'm going to say. You don't know what you're going to ask me, but we have the opportunity to not try to be impressive, try to know anything. We have the opportunity to just be in resonance.
Yeah.
And I know that's what I'm most attracted to. I was just telling a friend the other day, like there's certain people or celebrities I might resonate that aren't logical in some ways, but they're just themselves. And I can feel it, and I'll give a shout out to one. So Amanda Francis, who wrote the book, Rich as F. I'm normally like, I'll listen to some things about money and that kind of thing. But by and large, it's just not where I put my energy all the time. And, from a stereotyping, othering level, she's someone I couldn't wait to hate. Her book had been recommended to me by a couple of people, and I'm like, you're blonde, you're thin, you're attractive, you're wealthy,
Of course
you love fat. Like, I'm like, that's not me. Like it's right. And then
judge, and then
and eliminate these folks. But then I bought her book, and what was lovely was I was listening to her voice, and I was annoyed. And I say annoyed in the sense that like, oh my gosh, it even has that kind of a voice, right? And then I couldn't stop listening. And I thought, well, this is really interesting.
Got hooked.
I got hooked, but what I got hooked with was her authenticity. And again, I believe you hear this sometimes when an author reads their own book, right? You can hear they're ringing true with who they are without apology.
Yes.
And that is so attractive to me. I don't even care if I agree with everyone that I'm listening to, but when they're ringing their bell so strongly, Another example of this is there's certain animals I just love. So I love the octopus. I have,
Yeah. Okay.
symbolism. They're magical creatures. I think they're unbelievable. But there was just another series that Netflix put out. There's been books and series over the last handful of years about him. But in it, they interviewed Tracy Morgan, who's the most unlikely, in some ways, celebrity to be. But it's because he has these huge aquariums in his home, etc. But you hear him talk about how much these plants and animals and the wonder and the mystery, he knows a tremendous amount, but you can hear his care for all of humanity and plants and animals in a way I would never have expected, right?
Expected from him, yeah.
And that was, again, that authenticity resonance was so attractive to listen to. Not because we'd ever meet, have the conversation, etc., but I could hear him being him.
Yeah.
In this thing that really mattered to him.
Yes. I'm just going to tell you right now, I cannot believe you just brought up octopus. This was a crazy world we're living in. I just recently, I had a reading and something that was coming in dark had tentacles. It was octopus-like, not even kidding. And I just was scrolling and there was this octopus tentacle ring. I ordered it.
I love it.
It's on its way. I have tentacle arms on their way to be a ring. So it's so funny that you just said that because, that's crazy.
Well, now we're going to go down that little path for a moment.
Yes.
Because I will tell you why I love the octopus. And here's where you can.
Because he's been coming in for me too.
Yeah, you can see where the deeper symbolism is. But so again, I think it's in the same framework of understanding the wonder of all of us, humans or animals living on this planet. It's so easy to think we know, and we just don't know anything. They are so amazing and magical. So again, with an octopus, so they have these different legs, right? But every leg itself has its own personality and its own life. So literally, this leg might be a cranky one, and this one's a delightful one, right? So that one, I'm going to make the spirituality.
Multiple personalities.
Yeah, so if we make this, I'm going to go all the way back to, my buddy Ramakrishna. If we're all connected, imagine we're all one big octopus and you have your personality and I have my personality, but we coexist as one unique system. So to me, it's even a metaphor of that, right? The other thing that's, so amazing about them is they thought there's this, real strong belief that they're solitary animals and all that kind of stuff. Well, they are for the most of them that we've seen. But now they found these octopus communities, right? And so they sometimes are, they're sometimes not. They can change color, they can change shape, they can walk on land. And so I'm fascinated by those pieces, but also the sensorial nature. So I think as a woman, I have been criticized for, but I'm now proud of how sensitive I am. It has been told to me in corporate settings in my early days, no, you got to leave that sensitivity at home. It has no place at work.
Yeah, don't bring all that empath stuff here.
Yeah, not realizing it was my superpower. That sensitivity is what allows me to walk into a corporate boardroom and sense something is off over here and I can't figure it out.
Room.
But I know it's true.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. And so what I love about them is they are so sensing, they literally can taste you. They can identify the difference between humans. They can know if something's off or on, in their environment. And so there's just so many, I think, aspects and traits that I think are so admirable about them. And I think every time we want to categorize them, they surprise us.
I got a ring coming. I'm a fan. I'm going to be looking at the ring totally different now. I didn't even know why I ordered it. I just remembered it coming in the reading. And then all of a sudden this is how synchronicities, right? All of a sudden the ring just flies into my feed. And I'm like, I think I need that ring.
Yes. Well, and again,
you educate me on the octopus. Okay.
Well, and another piece of just that sensitivity and we have wondered for years they know a little bit more now, but the elephants and how they communicate, right? And so just to understand, that they put, it's a matrilineal society, right?
I watched a whole documentary on those elephants too. I loved
them. But the fact that they can put their foot to the ground and sense vibration in a communication way, just like the internet, right? I think, again, we have to remember that all this stuff that appears woo-woo, if we were talking about the internet 40 years ago, people would be like, what?
I thought we were nuts.
We're nuts. There's no cord connecting. Or that you would talk to your car. Yes, we saw it in Star Trek when I was a kid. but they seemed like that's never going to, like, that's science fiction.
Those
No,
are
we
just
just,
science fiction movies. No, they weren't.
yes.
It's coming. Yeah.
And I think, again, animals have a lot of these kinds of abilities that we're just so ignorant to. And we think as the dominant species who here to utilize everybody as a tool.
Yeah, we think we're at the top of the hierarchy, and really we're kind of probably the idiots more in the middle to the bottom.
We are the idiots. And I think about that with, even climatization and things like that, where people are like, it is not about saving the planet. The planet's fine. It will shake us off in a heartbeat.
I have a feeling that if Earth was done with us, we'd be gone.
We'd be gone. And you know what? Cockroaches are surviving.
We could just have a bunch of big ass natural disasters because Earth decided it was done with us.
Yeah.
And we're out.
Yeah.
Yeah. We don't hold any power against the Earth.
No. And I think that's like our hubris, right? And again, that's where for me, I'm going to go all the way back to your conversation about, the practices that I have spiritually are just because I choose to enter every day as if there's something more to learn and something new to open myself to and something to be exposed to and all of those kinds of things. And I think out of that, I tend to be what I would consider in my own definition a little better human.
Absolutely. I agree. Yeah. No, and learning and growing every day. And I think by having that attitude is why you can vibrate at a higher vibration. And therefore, your timeline is at the vibration that matches what you planned for this lifetime.
Yeah.
And that doesn't always mean it's going to be a good life. Like you said before, you have friends who had to do cancer, but it's about the lessons learned. It's about going through that in the most beautiful way we can.
Yes.
Yeah. And so by keeping ourselves open and at a higher vibration, I feel like those better things will come to us.
Yeah. And I think part of what's cool. Yes. Part of what's cool about, I say, becoming older, becoming wiser maybe, but is understanding that what that vibration is matters, and understanding that we have a limited time in this experience, however you define it. And so where do I want to put my time and resources, right? So again, my book, I didn't write because I have to go make money. Like that wasn't the point. It was just because it was there. This conversation we're having, it's because it's there. It's like a labor of love at some level, right?
Right. Yeah.
But it feels resonant. It feels true. It feels like the kinds of things that matter. And so the more I value my own energetic responses and feelings and things like that, I will tell you the last 3 years since I lost my last job have been magical in a way I couldn't describe. Yes, there were hard parts. Yes, there were tax things. Yes, there were difficult things I had to get educated on. At the same time, I joke, but it's true. Business doesn't come to me in a logical way that I was trained. That's not how it comes. I talk to people, I meet people, I explore the world, and stuff comes. And it's not a one-to-one connection, right? And if I get too scarce and too freaked out, my business pipeline tends to dry up. So then I have learned to leave that aside and go have fun. Go walk to the lake, go do something joyous, whatever it is, and that stuff loosens
your
it.
Vibration will match back up, and you probably come back from your walk and you get a couple new clients.
Yes. Yes. And it's story after story, or somebody I met, or something that didn't make sense. But what's lovely about that is I also don't have to over control and figure it out. I love to go in, on a plane or in a coffee shop and just open myself sometimes to say, I wonder who I'm going to meet. I wonder what's going to happen.
I'll put my phone away and I'm just going to see what humans around me want to have a cool discussion, or maybe even just people watching. Sometimes I just like to watch everybody interacting with each other. And
I love to do that
for me. Yeah.
And oftentimes my heart will expand. I can feel that energetic lifting. And then I will just bless them even though they don't know it.
You just send a little light their way.
Yeah. I even had that. It was funny this morning because it's not always the case, right? Sometimes I'm busy, running late and cranky, but I had the opportunity to let somebody in front of me, right? And in my old days, I was like, I love to drive fast, so I'm not letting anybody in,
Yeah. You get mad when they come up on that side lane and they didn't wait like the rest of us. And you're like, oh no, it's my turn to teach you a lesson.
Yes.
You're not getting in today.
Yes. Yeah. And by the way, I still reserve the right to do that. But
same. Yep. I still do that sometimes, but every once in a while you're in a mood where it's like, okay, I get it. I've been in your spot. Come on in.
Well, and just to sometimes I illogically will pause because again, I'm in the city in Chicago. So there's crosswalks that don't have stop signs or lights. And so the only way to let people cross who are waiting there is to follow the right protocol. If there's a crosswalk and there's a person near it, you're supposed to stop. but we don't, right?
Oh,
And
that's
so
true.
sometimes there might be two lanes going and I'm like, I am going to stop here and hold space until the cars in the lane next to me feel guilty and
And
have
they're
to
going to
stop.
stop too. Yeah.
Yes, so that that mother and child can cross, so the guy with his dog can cross, right?
Mm.
But what's so funny about those is I get this energetic hit. Like
No, it
afterward,
helps you more than them,
it
probably.
does.
Yeah.
It does. And that's where I say there's these things that are universal that you almost have heard before, but living them's different. Like, the gift is with the giver. Yes,
Mhm.
I'm the one that benefited. Oh, they also happen to got to cross. But the truth is, energetically, everything went better for me at that moment. I can't tell you what happened for them.
Right. But you felt better. That's all. That's kind of just what matters sometimes. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And again, I
No.
think if we go back to the world travels and the faiths and things like that, every religion has the opportunity to have deep, profound beauty and to be distorted from a human perspective. So again, any faith can be used to keep a people down or to empower them. Any faith can be used to keep, a systemic injustice in place or to not. Anyone can. And the more that what I love about this is I feel like there's always more we're learning. We're discovering different, parts of history we didn't know about. I have these feeds right now that are following me that are about, female inventors I knew nothing about. They were never in the books. And
Yep.
so to understand there are whole experiences and histories that we are ignorant to is very exciting to me because it holds more possibilities.
Yeah,
You
because
know,
you're a lifelong learner like me. I love to hear like what, like hear new stuff. Like wait, what? I've been obsessed with just the story of Mary Magdalene and how that's got
yes,
distorted. There's so many historically different. I will say in this era right now, it's primarily women because of a patriarchy that happened in our
yeah,
history. And so a lot of that did get put by, so I love learning all the new stuff about things we might not have known about because essentially religion isn't bad. I'm not here today to tell everybody religion is bad. At its core, what they're going for, Christianity, all the different religions is good. They are trying to focus on God and living our lives in the best way possible and all of those things. Okay. It's just like you said, when they start getting manipulated by humans,
yeah,
that's what we do. And it almost starts to feel political to me. And I hate that. I don't
yes,
want politics and religion to feel the same to me, but sometimes
yes.
they do. And that's bothersome for me. Yeah.
Me too. And I think, again, to allow ourselves to, again, meet people who are not like us, meet people who worship in a different way and be curious, right? To ask them, what matters to you? Why does that matter? Why do you do these different things? I think some of our wisest humans still existing are the indigenous peoples
Oh, yeah.
who we didn't understand and we didn't know how to, and or we had an agenda to dominate, conquer, and eliminate. So there is so much potential for rediscovery of things. Like, again, our pharmacies are plants that we learned how to, synthetically make because we pulled these things out of the rainforest. Original aspirine comes from a plant.
Still like plants, you guys. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And again, to think about the early peoples who learned what was helpful and harmful by energetically tapping in to a communication with that plant and seeing what it had to say. And see what it could tell you and things like that. Like the other
When
piece
you
I
would
love
pass
that.
that down generationally, but we don't do that anymore. It got
Yes.
lost.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love the people that are connecting the like sound transmitters to trees and plants and things like now. And they're transmitting songs, but they can show if I go to sniff a flower, the song changes compared to when I was away. So we think this is just an inanimate object. Yes, it's growing, but
That's why we got to
no.
talk to our plants and
Yes, which I do, by the way. I mean, this is my joke because, when I first got married, my husband was more the green and blue thumb. We have fish and we have plants, but I now have good relationships with a handful of, quote unquote, my plants because I do talk to them. I connect with, I say good morning.
I got I've been trying to bring this damn aloe plant back to life for I don't know how long. And I keep saying to him, buddy, listen, what do you
You
need?
got this.
I'm doing the water things right. You're in the sun right where you need to be. What else do you need from me, buddy? Let's get going again here.
Yeah.
What do I need? I'm trying to raise your vibes, bud. But
Yeah.
So same. He doesn't say anything back, but I know he hears me. Yep.
Absolutely. Well, and again, I joke.
Look at him, and he's going to be thriving. And I'll be like,
Yes.
yes.
Well, I have two of those in my bathroom, to your point, where I didn't even think much. Of course, you read about these things. Is it your oxygen that you're breathing at? Is it one of these?
Right.
But like, I just kept giving them love for a long time. And I have these two plants that are just thriving now that weren't before. They were fine, but they were not like they are, right? So, and again, I think there's so many people that want to find out, quote unquote, the truth, right? Well, is that true or not? Are you making that up or not? It's blah, blah, blah. And I think the beautiful part, again, as life goes on, is to realize like it doesn't matter. It doesn't even matter to me. That seems like a waste of energy. What I know is out of approaching a plant that way, again, I am a net contributor versus a net taker on the planet. By approaching a human that way with curiosity rather than judgment and criticism, I'm more of a net contributor than a net taker, and I think about that for me at the end of days. Again, I will always do that flash forward. But for me, my personal goal, and I'm not saying everybody even has to have this goal, but like at the end of the days, I want to look back and say, yeah, net giver, net contributor, however it was. Did less harm, more contribution,
Yeah. And so we worry less about, is that true? Is it not? What are the facts? I got to, is that really working or not? Well, what's it matter? I'm talking in a beautiful, nice way to my plant, and it's putting good energy out, whether it's helping, like, I don't care if you believe it's helping the plant. It's helping me. It's
absolutely.
I don't know.
And even from a spiritual practice perspective, another one of my loves is Paramahansa Yogananda, who wrote Autobiography of a Yogi. I love that book. I never used to reread any book, and I can't even think how many times I've read that book. It's dog-eared for me. I did the Self-Realization Fellowship as the thing that he started, but I had done their correspondence courses for meditation, which is a kind of a rigorous thing that you do. At the time it was mail away, and you'd get your thing and do your next thing. I loved learning about that. And again, I have a deep heart resonance with him and who he was in the world and his contribution. But there became a time at which even that meditation practice became too much of a to-do and a driven thing for me and was missing the point, right?
Yeah.
And so I think, again, considering these different faiths, but we really get to be in the driver's seat and see what does work for us, what resonates with us, how do we want to use that? Are we using it for the best and highest, right? And so to even catch myself as I, continue to make a faith spirituality practices that work for me, I get to change my mind. I get to use something for a while.
Right. So in your spiritual journey right now, what kind of practices are you doing? What's filling your spiritual cup right now? You have this knowledge of all these different spiritual practices and different religions. It's okay for us to cherry pick, isn't it?
Absolutely. I mean, I'm a strong believer in it because I think if there is,
I love that ritual. I'm doing it.
Yeah. If there is something called God, love, unified force that created us, if that is true, do I really think that force cares which version and what I mean? No, I really don't, right?
Same place. Yep.
But for me, I will say part of the beauty of transitioning from the last job and things like that was, so I mentioned I had done this metaphysical, then I got real grounded and studied these world religions, but then it was tapping back into that permission. So I ran across a woman who does angel readings, and she's just lovely. And it's Angel Readings by Lori, if anybody wants to Google her. What was interesting was I can't remember why. It was like a video wormhole. And I ran across a video of her on YouTube, and it wasn't a typical thing she does. It's how it's a coincidence, serendipity, right?
Yep.
And it was something like maybe it was in advance of 2019 or 2020 where she doesn't do predictions, but for whatever reason in this one, she had talked about the coming year and what we could expect to see in the quarters. And it was when we had the big protests and things like that. So she had said it before it happened, and I was watching the video later. And I was like, oh, she's tapped in. There's something going on here, right?
Thanks.
So I looked her up, and so I have, done angel readings with her for 3 years now, right? And so to me,
how often are you doing them?
Well, originally I did some in person, but the kinds of things I do with her now is I buy a package where I send questions every week. She does a reading offline and sends me answers.
And sends you. And are they
because
on?
I wouldn't have the time, to set aside things, but I use them just like somebody would their board of directors. And she just happens to be somebody who, again, is tuned into a frequency where she sees and hears at a more profound level. It's not that I never hear or never have those experiences, but hers is so direct that it's almost like she's my chosen medium for this communication. So I'll just ask questions and see what resonates, right? So that's a regular thing for me, on an ongoing basis. But tapping into that, there were so many things that they talked about that I never said. So I'm also a total skeptic. So if I go to a reader or something, I'm like, I'm going to tell you nothing and we'll see what you say.
Right. Yeah, hey, you got to prove yourself to me this time, girl.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because
I
will say the challenge in this space right now is there's so many people out there just jumping on the bandwagon and making a ton of money, and all they are is good marketers. And to the point of authenticity, you can feel that lack of resonance.
I can feel it right away.
Yeah. I'm like, no, there's many people I have unfollowed. I'm like, I'm not interested in your spiritual woo-woo thinking you're a goddess thing. So, but to that point, like, it just really resonated with me. It felt authentic, all that kind of thing. But now part of my regular practice is, I say journaling, but like, I had to give myself permission to write crap. Like, this doesn't have to be journaling like any thoughtful thing. It's just, I put my pen to paper and let myself write.
Just like whatever. Because sometimes I think people veer away from that because they think they need to have this beautiful journal at the end.
Yes.
I'm going to have to sit and I'm going to have to use my words a specific way and sound really beautiful. And no. You could throw grocery
And I had to give myself permission to write in 4 different ones and not have it be chronological and catch something on a napkin and all those kinds of things. But that is a regular practice for me where I'll just have it there. And sometimes a thought comes out. Sometimes I'm just writing nothing. And sometimes there is guidance that comes directly, right? So although, I have this person that I communicate with, I will ask my angels, guides, spirits, however you want to describe very concrete things. And again, whether that's them or my higher wisdom, doesn't matter.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
But I believe it is a partnership.
Do you ask for specific physical signs ever? I do this a lot too. I'll be like, okay, if this is what I'm supposed to do, then show me this. Or it'll come to me in meditation that I'm going to see 3 feathers or something. All right. And then I see if that goes down.
Well, and I do it that way. And again, I believe that there's a lot of guidance beyond what we tap. And so to me, it could be anything really mundane. Like, I will go, hey, I need a parking spot. Can you give me a convenient place to sit? Can you give me a spot in that coffee shop? Which I will say predominantly happens. It's not 100% time,
there it is.
but it predominantly happens.
Yeah.
Before I get on a chem check call with a new executive coaching client, I will say, if this client is meant for me, draw them to me magnetically. If they're not, rip them from my space. So like those kinds of practices before I get on for my day, I light a candle, I do some incense, and I ask that I be used as fully as I possibly can in those interactions. And so there's a lot of, again, just those micro things, right? If I feel moved, I have cards I might pull. I have, and I happen to be blessed to be with a network of people who do their own things, but not even all the same. I think there's just something.
All the same things? No.
Yes. There was, one of the things, and I can't remember if we talked about this last time or not, but when I listened to, his name will come to me, but he's a Scottish theologian, Newell. I think it's John Newell. He was talking about early Christianity and the fact that the early Celtic Christians, so my background, if you traced my DNA, is almost all Gaelic.
Okay.
It's like, all right. Nothing exotic. You're all right there. But I realized I had never learned about Celtic Christianity versus Roman Christianity. I was just raised Roman Catholic. Right. And so what's so interesting about Celtic Christianity, from, again, what he shared in his perspective, is that they believed everything is divine. So you are not born with sin, you are born divine. And so to just even realize what a figure ground shift that is to think about. And so part of the challenge was the Roman Christians needed to get rid of that because they couldn't conquer and dominate the earth and planet with that belief system, because otherwise the earth is sacred, trees are sacred, everything's sacred. Well, then how am I going to rip them down, make a building, crush a peoples, right? So when they went to kind of stomp out Celtic Christianity, they couldn't do it in an easy way because unlike the Roman Catholic Church, there was no one power at the top. Celtic Christianity was a collection of communities. And so let's say I was somebody who was a philosopher contemplative, in that in my particular Celtic Christianity community, I would travel to other communities and we would share knowledge. I'd gain some knowledge, I'd share some knowledge, but there was no one solid agreed upon doctrine, right?
Okay.
And so
I like that. Yeah.
To think about even that as a construct, that we don't have to conform to any belief system. We don't have to whatever. We get to share, explore, discover each other, go into new territories. That's what's exciting to me.
Yes. And then you've taken all of those different things that you've learned and what resonates with you, you've incorporated into your life. or your
Yeah,
faith.
and literally, I'm listening. I'll see if I can. I hadn't thought about it just as you were talking, but here on my desk. So here's Kuan Yin, who
Yeah.
I ran across when I was in Thailand. She comes from another deity that precedes her called Avalokiteshvara. I can never pronounce it, but in essence, this incarnation of her, she who hears the cries of the world. So again, she became to me something that was more of honoring my sensitivity, honoring the part of me that might cry when I see someone else hurt, that's okay, right? But I also got Mary sitting here.
Oh, Mary.
I got a little Ganesha, who's the remover of obstacles. And it was interesting. I didn't realize when I was first doing these pilgrimage trips, I came home from Thailand and someone had given me a gift of a wooden statue of Kuan Yin. My husband got very upset. He was raised in the Presbyterian faith, and I didn't realize even that objects were a problem for him, for him. And that,
okay,
which again is true in Judaism and a lot of different Christianity pieces, because I was so raised with all these weird statues. I mean, when you think about it, like there's a guy up there bleeding and we think that's normal, so it didn't occur to me.
Yeah.
But to that point, it's not that I worship that statue or that thing.
No.
To me, it's evocative of a sense of energy that matters. And so again, for her, it's honoring that sensitivity. For the Ganesha, it's remembering that obstacles can be removed, that's a possible force, that I may not see the way to resolve them, that they may, that Mary, that enfolding nature, but also that tough lady. I mean, if you think about, if the stories are true and people thought she had a divine incarnation, like, again, I don't know what's true or not true, but just to be a woman living that must have been hard.
Heck yeah. Yeah.
And you got this kid who's running off and telling every people all this wisdom and then going to Egypt for a while.
Mother Mary there, regardless of what's true and not, like, she went through it.
Badass.
Good job, Mary. Yeah, we love her.
Good job. But I think, again, to that point, my desk space is surrounded.
You.
Yes. And that's and that may change at any point in time, but that's what helps me be in a better, clearer, more open, curious space when I come to serve people. And again, I don't care if I'm serving people through a paid executive consulting gig, I'm teaching a class, I'm doing whatever. Mm-hmm. To me, it's all a way to open my heart and give.
Yes. And so you don't feel like, because I know some people worry about, will that religion or that ethnicity, anything, think I'm trying to steal from their culture. You know how there's this whole debate online if a blonde white woman's allowed to have braids, just weird stuff we argue about. I don't even get half but are you trying to take something from another culture that you haven't put in the time and the energy in to be able to use? I don't know, like gatekeeping almost.
Well, and I will say again, in that fine line, like what bothers me is when people come on as if they're experts about those things, right? So it would bother me if white woman came on trying to tell me exactly what the indigenous people knew, unless she studied with them or whatever. On the other hand, what I think we have the opportunity to do, and what my experience has been in having contact with people of different faiths, they're delighted that you have an interest, a curiosity, are looking for commonality, wish to share it. So as long as you aren't trying to steal that to sell something, make money, represent it, etc.
Exactly. This is just our own personal
for your own personal respect and enlightenment. And I will say, like, if anybody ever approached me to say, hey, don't say that way, or you're wrong about this or whatever, I'm like, great, sorry, thanks. Like, that's going to be my response.
I don't want to offend anybody. No.
Well, and even beyond defending, like, my intent is to allow the purity of the message to help me be a better person. And if I'm somehow distorting that out of my lack of wisdom or knowledge, I wish to be corrected. That's fine. And again, it's where, and you and I talked about this with the book last time, I do not pretend to be a thought leader expert on anything. No. What I am is a human on this planet, totally imperfect, discovering every day, enjoying when I run across people like you who love having these deep conversations,
Sharing your life experiences.
Yes.
Sharing it with each other.
Yeah.
And I think lives, let's share it. Yeah.
And I think that is it, is like, to me, I think we really can, in more of a, historical, patriarchal, limited scientific perspective, we almost minimize what experience is and means. So you and I are going to go into a room, we're literally going to see different colors, even if we both call it red.
Yep.
We're literally going to feel in our body different experiences depending on who's standing in that room, right? And so to really understand that all I can know is my experience. And even that could change in a month when I have had exposure to other insights, knowledge, wisdom,
Yeah,
right?
I always say I hold the right to change my mind. I'm telling you what I believe right now. In 10 years, I might have shifted a bit. I don't know.
Well, totally. We may come back to do this podcast in 2 years and go, oh my gosh, isn't that hilarious? We were talking about this, but we didn't even know this other thing.
No, there's so many new things coming. So do you have any more pilgrimages on the horizon? What do you see in your future?
I am. The one I'm shopping and considering is actually exactly back to the theologian I was just talking about. So there's a beautiful retreat that he leads in the Isle of Iona right off of Scotland. What is so resonating to me about that I'm thinking about for next year is, it is just, you stay in that space, you're out in nature. He's sharing what the different perspectives are from these faiths, but I'm in a phase in my life right now where the biggest wisdom I'm enjoying is what's emerging from the inside as I have stimulus from the outside. And so the idea of being kind of secluded in that space is interesting to me. The other thing, which again, I know you've had these experiences too, I feel called there for some reason. I don't need to logically figure out why. I just feel very called by that little isle,
So to newbies out there listening right now, so if you're listening, you're like, I want to do a pilgrim. I've never done one. I want to do a pilgrimage. Where do you start by deciding where? Like you said, I feel called to that area. We get on Google. How do we figure out where the best place? Do you have any tips for finding out where the best place for us is?
Yeah. And I would say you can Google, you can look it up, and you can, you and I talked about this energetically. The job is really to close our eyes and tune into ourselves and see what resonates, right?
Yeah.
So I will even do a Google search about something and a place might resonate or not resonate. Or there might be a group leading something there, but I'm like, ooh, I want to go there, but that group does not feel good to me.
Doesn't feel like a fit. Yep.
Yeah. And so I think, searching is fine. I think talking to people is fine. I think searching sacred spaces is fine.
Mm-hmm.
Like, again, for me, sometimes I might travel as a solo female on some of these. Sometimes I might be a group. So that might come into my search, where are the spaces that I can go to, et cetera. And then to just know that there, I just think there's a lot more goodwill in the world that we realize, so that you could, if you have curiosity about something, you could reach out to a group or a place or, an Indian ashram and say, hey, I would love to just come learn about meditation. Do you do anything like that? Could I come?
Pilgrimage, you don't have to go to a whole nother country.
No.
You can start exploring new things right in the place you're at right now.
Yeah.
It's just opening your mind. That's a pilgrimage too. Hey, I'm going to open my mind. I'm going to start getting some of these cool readings I've heard about. I'm going to go learn something new, right?
Yeah. I'm just going to expose myself to something that's not like me. And to your point, the Paramahansa Yogananda, like the Self-Realization Fellowship, they're in California, and their space is gorgeous. He did this beautiful kind of nature restoration. So they have open hours. You can walk in and walk around this nature kind of sanctuary they have around this little lake and just be there. You don't have to do anything, be anybody, anything, right? If you choose to, you can also join them for a meditation or do something else. But again, to your point, there's loads of places here. And as long as you're respectful and curious and ask, somebody can always say no.
Sure.
But there's a lot of yeses I think we dismiss because we just never ask.
Yeah. And then as you start a little bit like that, you'll start to tap into your intuition more, and you'll start to feel where you're meant to go. Then when you're ready to do that bigger trip, you're very confident in where that's going to be, right?
Well, and to your point about
another country for no real reason.
Yeah, to your point about the synchronicities and even the octopus today, what you find is the more you lean into that edge, you're talking to somebody and all of a sudden they mention someplace or something they did. Like the synchronicities and happenstances will come as you continue to lean in and open yourself up and just be in the wonder of it.
Yes. I have an angel reading person too. She was actually on the show, Nicole, and which I had even before the podcast, was doing readings with her. And so out of nowhere the other day, I just texted her and I said, what's going on, Nicole? I'm just thinking about you. What's happening in your world? I don't know why, but I felt like I should reach out to you. So she's texting with me and all of a sudden she's like, hey, we're planning this whole pilgrimage to Egypt. You should come. And I was like, oh, is this why I reached out to her? Because I've been obsessed with Egypt forever. So I swear I've had past lives there for sure.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
I'm like, oh, I kind of want to get there. I got to get by these pyramids. I want to, just meditate in there. Anyway, so like you said, the synchronicities. I don't know why I felt called to, but now I'm feeling called to go to Egypt with this group. And so I'm spending time researching the group, what they're doing, really meditating on it. Like, is this meant for me now? Is this the time? Is this why? And so, no, it'll just come to you sometimes like that. I didn't even go looking for a pilgrimage. And all of a sudden it came to me just because I went with my gut to reach out to someone.
Well, and now I'm laughing because the group that I had gone with for years, they went to Egypt long before I'd gone there, and I still haven't been. And I'm like, okay, now maybe now I got to go down this wormhole and see, maybe that's calling to me.
Maybe get in there. No, It's a small group, but I think it's going to be amazing. But yeah, I'm pulling towards, I got to go. Do you also have any other tips for people? Only because you have such a vast life experience with all these religions for people right now who are struggling to balance their beliefs with all of these influences around them. They're in this spiritual journey. They're trying to ditch whatever religion they were raised in, whatever dogma, whatever, they were raised in. And they're still struggling to wrap their brain around, how do I define myself right now? Do we need to define ourselves? Or how do I just let my faith and my spirituality flow and be able to be open to these things? Because part of the way we were raised, like I was raised in strict Christianity, we weren't really allowed to explore.
Yeah.
Like, oh, the Buddha statue, oh, this, like, oh God, that's you worshiping in a different idol and you're going to hell. Like, so do you have any tips for people they're in the place right now where they're exploring all these other things?
Yeah.
And probably feeling a little guilt and not sure how to define themselves to people.
Well, I would think a couple things on that, because to me, like, even as you were saying that, as much as you can get back to the core of whatever faith you're already in, right? To look at like, wait a minute, where's the essence of this? Where does this come from? Because like, just when you were describing that, the thing I always think about with Christianity in particular is like, okay, the Jesus that I know, is that how he would, no, he was the dude that accepted everybody into his circles. He would not be the one that says, oh, go avoid the Buddha statue. He'd be the one walking over there being, what's this about? Who is here to meet, right? It's not like Jesus.
Do you think Jesus ever really asked to be worshipped? I don't think so.
No, I don't think so at all.
I know that we've built it up into that, but I am the way, the path. I believe, he is. Being more like him is the path.
I believe he had a whole experience that was completely valid and said, he says, you too can do this. I think he was a teacher that said, yes, you too can experience these alternate realities. You too can touch the divine. You too can have a mystical experience.
There's a lot of missing years. There's a lot of missing years.
Well, the Egypt years, right?
He was on his own pilgrimage, you guys.
Yeah, or India years, I guess. Yeah.
And that's what he's telling us. You too can find yourself through these journeys.
Well, and so I think when you get back to the core of most faiths, there's something there that's core. So again, not to be mindless as a Christian and rule that out, to really do think about, not make it a trite phrase, but I wonder if the core of what, Jesus has done is the right, like back. I do think that's one way to think about it, because I do think that exists in all faiths when we take back the distorted influences that men have had, right? The other piece of it to me is to really think about what is the value set, right, that I am orienting to. And so, my value set is goodness, kindness, respect, honoring all peoples, honoring life in its forms, all those kinds of things. So is this choice that I'm nervous about making in violation of that or not? To me, being curious and exploring someone else and getting to know their place and see how that resonates to you, that is doing no harm, right? And so from that perspective, it's kind of checking in that way. But I do believe, and this is just because it's been my personal experience, but honoring mysticism, meaning that direct connection. Like you can use whatever faith you were raised in. So if you were raised in a faith with meditation, meditate about it. If you were raised in a faith with prayer, pray about it and really try to tune in. And you and I talked about this before, but that real emotional intelligence, intuitive wisdom, body knowing can lead you in those right and wrongs. And then the other thing from a real practical perspective is some of that stuff we have to unravel. Like that's where therapy is useful and all of those
Oh,
other
yeah.
things to say, okay, is this a limiting childhood belief based on experience? Like just when we were starting talking about the nuns, is that all nuns? Is that what the Catholic faith is meant to teach? No, it's not. So
No.
I need to unravel my childhood experience of when she humiliated me in front of my second grade class from what it really means to represent that faith, right? So I
Yes.
think it's both of those pieces. But I think, again, go back to the origin at some level, tune into that kind of internal wisdom and do the unfinished work of whatever you need to do to separate the actual lifetime experiences you had that probably created some harm in some way that needs to be resolved.
Yep. You resolve that, and then you get closer to that feeling of the oneness,
Yeah.
right? Whether it's the net or, in your book, you have that little sun with all the different paths we talked about.
Yeah.
But the oneness, I think once you get to that point, like I don't really judge all the other religions. I'm not judging anybody. I think they're all valid. I think they have a lot of great things in all of them. I just don't resonate with any particular one in full.
Yeah.
Right? Like there's
as an exclusive thing. Yeah.
So you get to that point of that oneness and you're like, I love all these different religions. I love learning about them. I love incorporating things that feel good to me. I don't have to incorporate all of it. And like you said, I don't think God has just one path and one way to come to these realizations. It's God. Why would he have one path, dude?
Yeah. Could we please give God Force a bit more credit?
Can we give God some props? He's not. Well, he's got a lot more going on than
to
one
your point of that Scottish philosopher John Newell, when he was talking about this Celtic Christianity, he gave some example, and I don't know exactly the details, but it's about a conference where these Celtic Christians came together with indigenous from our country peoples, and there was a huge resonance of the belief sets. They had so much in common, right?
In common.
So understanding that that's possible, that unification, that sense of all connected. And if nothing else, to just look around and say, let's look at what we have in common. We are all human beings. Yep. And most of us are trying to do right by ourselves in this world. And we just get a little misguided at times.
Yes, we do. Because all the faiths have the same basis of love and, all of the things. We just have to get past all the stuff that was man-made after that.
Yeah.
When all of us humans came and kind of screwed things up and decided, right? Even
just tried to use it for other purposes.
Like even just translations from language to language, we screwed some things up.
Well, to your point, one of the books I just love is the Neil Douglas Klotz, who took the Beatitudes and the Our Father and he translated it. He went back to the original Aramaic. And, that was supposedly the tongue that Jesus actually spoke in. And then he retranslates forward those. But what's interesting about Aramaic is every word has multiple levels of meaning. So there's not a direct translation. So when he translates the Beatitudes forward, he'll do 5 different versions or 3 different versions. Same thing with the Our Father.
There's a lot of ways to interpret.
Yes.
And then I feel like that's where some of the politicism came in. We're going to interpret it to what feels like we want to happen.
Yes.
Right.
And when you look at his translations forward, half of them make me bawl in a way that even though I was raised with an Our Father prayer and I was raised with a Beatitude thing, his going back to that language and bringing them forward, they're stunning. They're poetry.
No,
they're just so moving.
Online too. I love it. If you guys ever want to go down a rabbit hole and start looking up, the differences and all the choices they had between how to interpret this into the new language. And then that's where we screwed up a little bit because we've decided what we'd like to put out there. Right.
Well, it was a framework of whatever was true in that culture and time too.
Correct. And we needed to make sure the patriarchy continued and men stayed in power. Well, okay. The people translating were men. They're going to make it a certain way.
Yeah.
Right. Because that served them at the time. Right.
Yep.
That's human. That didn't all come from God. Clearly. I think once you can wrap your brain around that, you're more okay with everything. Yep. Right.
Yep.
You're like,
here.
Okay, that wasn't written in stone. That didn't come straight from God, did it? That went through a lot of phases before someone taught it to me.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. We got to we got to all come together, you guys. Can we figure this out?
And I believe in us, right? I'm like a little of the, the Peter Pan where you believe in Tinkerbell. Like, I believe, I want to clap my hands together.
We can all raise our little, we're supposedly all raising into 5D anyway, aren't we?
Supposedly. I'm game,
Okay, we can go whatever 5D, 6, whatever D I need to be at. God will help me there. But
Exactly.
I think we'll be good. Oh my gosh. Well, you guys, so listen, couldn't we just listen to Barbara all day long, you guys?
Well, what a privilege and gift to be back again and again,
So fun. Yeah,
for
this is
Jen's
so
listeners. So
good.
this was like a side thing we ended up down a pathway of, in our conversation, which again, talk about that
I
synchronicity.
know. Wait a minute. No, we don't have time for that now, but we got to make time for it. Yeah,
Yeah.
you guys need to hear this because I think it if you were already thinking in some of the ways Barbara is or not, and you're just being open-minded right now, hey, you've got more of a journey now to go on, right?
Yeah.
This is part of it. Just hearing all these stories and hearing experiences others have been through in their spiritual journey, I think really helps us in ours because there isn't a right and wrong. There's not a
No.
right and wrong way to do this, you guys. There's not a right and wrong religion. There's not a right and wrong way down your spiritual path.
And I think it just opens up such a playground, right? Because otherwise we get ourselves in these really narrow frameworks that are just limiting. It's not even like they're bad or good or bad either way. But I do feel like it's as we allow ourselves permission, there's so much more to explore, to discover, to learn. And again, you said it before, Jen, but that's the part of lifelong learner that I love, right? I'm open to seeing some different perspective in another week or a month or a year or whatever, or a next level of that. And that's really fun and delightful and meaningful. When you were talking before about how we might define our faith in different things that way, or, a religion or not a religion. And, one of the things that somebody said to me at one point in time is, I think my spirituality and my faith is the mystery, the beauty of exploring and not even having to have the resolution, but to be allowed to be an explorer in the great mysteries. And, maybe even to transition out of this existence into another one, knowing this human version of myself didn't even resolve it. I am a person who believes our soul has multiple incarnations of us that it can juggle at any particular point in time.
Yeah.
And so this version, when she transitions to whatever's next, like, I believe I'll have another job. I'd be like, all right, how was that one? Okay, good. Now let's focus here.
There's something else now. Yeah.
Yeah. But
yeah, I've always said people who want to find the fountain of youth, freeze their bodies. I'm like, no. This one feels like enough for this life, right?
Oh, that was one thing that upset me the most. We were talking about things that upset you, but particularly the, California bros that want their, themselves saved so that they can be the Uber AI I'm like, yeah, no, we don't need that here.
Yeah, no.
Like, I don't. And again, to your point about beliefs, I don't believe that this is it, right? And I when I was with this friend in Denver, we just watched the Temple Grandin movie from 2010, which I'd never had the opportunity to watch. And she's amazing. So for listeners who don't know, she's, probably the most preeminent autistic leader and speaker in our space. And the way in which she has seen the world and stuff, her books are amazing. I highly recommend them. But one of the most beautiful things in the movie, like everything's not 100% accurate to her life, but there's enough there.
Right.
But there's a couple scenes, one where she sees, a horse that has died, and another where, she's seeing the cows that has died. And because from the autistic perspective, you're unedited, this is the beauty of all of the folks in our world that can be unedited,
Mm-hmm.
But she says multiple times, where did it go? Where did it go? And, and what I love is there's a lot of adults who would answer like, I don't know, but that perspective that it is not here. I see that body, but it is no longer here.
Yeah. Yeah.
So what is even that it that she could recognize that isn't in this physical space right now, but still exists, right?
Yeah. No, I love Temple Grandin. My daughter, when she was in college, did a whole 10-page paper on Temple. So I was like researching it with her, right? Because I would like look at her paper to help edit here and there. So I learned so much. I was like, I love this Temple.
She's amazing.
In general, autistic and people on the spectrum, I think have a higher, I think they get stigmatized as a lower.
Well, I have to go down. I have to go to the wormhole, even though we're about to complete. Did you listen to the telepathy tapes yet?
No.
Okay. Next time Jen and I are going to talk, even though it won't be in a podcast, she's going to be wigging out because I highly recommend that. Also, that podcast for your listeners the telepathy tapes. Like telepathy tapes, and it basically this woman begins her journey in exploring autism and some superpowers, and it goes down wormholes that are beautiful, delightful, and made me cry because I thought I knew it. I'm only going to say that. I'm not going to say anything more, but
okay. But I think I know the same thing you do. All right.
Yeah.
I'm going to get into those because I believe that they have a higher calling, and I think that they're better connected to the oneness and to God than we are.
I 100% believe that. And that's where
differently than ours. And that's a good thing.
When I had a friend who had reached out and asked me if I had listened to him, and this is all in the last, 3 months or whatever. And I interrupted her before she could have, and she said they happen to be about autistic. And I said, I'm going to pause you right there. Here's what I believe about autistic people. And I went off on this little riff, and she just was quiet. And I thought, oh my God, did I wig her out? Did I offend her? What happened? And she goes, okay, this is bizarre because that's pretty much what this whole thing's about. You have to go listen to it.
Talk about. Oh my God, I'm going to listen to all of it.
Yeah.
No, I love all that kind of stuff. Got it. No, I love it. One of my favorite freaking shows to watch is Love on the Spectrum. The beautiful interactions on there. I'm like, we all need to be watching this and learning from these people.
Well, and again, just modeling, we think it's a problem that you can't, put on artifice. But isn't it a beautiful thing that you can't put on artifice?
Yeah.
I mean, what a relief.
Yes. No, I love it.
Okay. I mean, any parents out there, when you've had your kid, I remember I was sitting in my car and the window was open and one of my kids was like, there's a person there on a bike without a helmet. And Mom, didn't you say you should never ride without your helmet? Again, the person can hear it. They're literally 2 feet away from us in this park space. And you're just like, oh my gosh. And there was another one. It was like, Mom, didn't you say smoking's really bad for you? You want to cringe because they've just said it, but they've just said that truth that I raised them with that was unedited,
Exactly.
Yeah.
No, I love it.
Yeah. Unfortunately, we socialize them to then hide the truth, right?
Or if you're out there and either you're neurodivergent or you have children or family members or friends, this is not a problem. This is amazing. Yeah. If you can embrace those qualities, I mean, wow.
Yeah. And thank you for being the guardians of these special beings that can be challenging at times too.
You were given a very special job out there is what I believe. You were given a very special job to be this person's caregiver and bring them through this lifetime.
Yeah.
Oh boy, you're going to get to the other side and you're going to be amazed at the things you're going to find out. Yeah.
Here.
I'm getting the chills right now. So it's real. Whenever I get the chills, it's real, you guys. It's meant to be heard. And
I believe it.
I believe it. I believe a lot of things. Barbara and I believe a lot of things, you guys, as you can tell. Yeah. This has been great.
Well, and I would just say, I love as you open yourself up to these experiences, I'm going to go back to the invitation, Jen, that you were making to people. This was not a foregone conclusion that Jen and I would ever have this conversation, right? There's nothing logical about it. It's not like the book that I wrote is about this. It's not like the business that I do is about this, right? But, when you're open, then there's things that can occur such that we could probably talk for days about these kinds of topics because we live in different places.
Yeah.
But there's a shared resonance.
Yes. You guys, this is your homework. You guys need to open yourself up to what's around you because the right things will come into your life. You just have to be open to see them, the right people, the right experiences. And you don't have to have any intention. Don't even think about it like that. Today
don't need to drive an outcome.
That and the other. You're just got to be open. There's no work to it. Just be open and trust your gut.
Yeah.
Like my text, there's a pilgrimage to Egypt. You know what I mean? And then just feel it and see if it's supposed to happen. Yeah.
Yeah. Here.
Okay. Well, this has been another good one, Barbara. Thank you for being on here with me. Everybody listening, thank you for being here and listening to us. You still, of course, got to check out her website and her book and all her things because she may just be the perfect match for you. Right.
Well, and I want to say thank you. And thank you for opening a space where we could have such an unedited conversation about these things that I love.
Yeah. For the record, you guys, Barbara and we went into today with no list of questions, no itinerary. We were just like, let's do this. We got things to talk about.
We're going out onto the wild range.
Yeah, we're doing it. Let's see what we can bring to the people today because someone was meant to hear something we said today.
Here.
They will hear it. If you're listening, it might be you. If you were meant to hear something, you feel it. You feel it right now, don't you? Yeah, that Jen and Barbara came together for you today. So Go with it. That's what we're here for. We're givers, even we don't know who we're giving to. We're giving.
Absolutely.
Yep. That's the whole point, you guys. That's the point of this crazy old human life. Okay. Well, thank you. And you guys tune in again next week. We got more. I got more for you. Don't even worry about it. We got plenty of really amazing guests coming. All right. Thanks, Barbara.
Thank you.
Listen, I know your time is valuable. And right now I'm feeling super grateful and totally humbled that you chose to hang out with me today. If this podcast resonates with you, could you do me a solid and hit that subscribe or follow button? That's going to help you out because you're never going to miss an episode. And it helps me out because you're never going to miss an episode. And if you have like 30 seconds more, could you leave a 5-star rating and maybe leave a kick-ass review? Thank you so much. And I can't wait to continue our journey on the next episode. Oh, and I can't forget the fine print. You know, the legal jargon. This podcast is presented solely for educational and entertainment purposes. We're just two friends on this journey together, and this podcast is not intended as a substitute for the advice of a physician, professional coach, psychotherapist, or any other qualified professional. You get it. See you next time.